So yes, many congratulations first of all on winning those prestigious awards for innovation and sustainable design. You've done us proud, really.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Could you please just tell us a little about your educational background? A lot of
So,
aspirants would love to know. Yeah, please go ahead.
yeah, so I graduated from School of Planning and Architecture in New Delhi in 2009. And then I went on to do a postgraduate diploma in robotic fabrication from
Yes.
IIT Barcelona. And since then, yeah, I got back to India and then been practicing.
Okay. Nice. And how was this idea born, the Ant Studio? It's a brilliant combination of art, nature, and technology. We'd like to know more.
So I think the whole idea behind Ant was that, I think ever since I was in college, I've been always been fascinated by this technology, to say, and I always believed that, in experimentation, trying to do new stuff, new forms, and all of it, and experimentation has been one of my core interests right since college, and I was also part of this art installation society in college. I was actually working on that. So what really happened is when I got out of college, I really dreamt of this one unique place where we can do not just building design, but also bring a lot of people together, do some crazy stuff. And I always wanted this place where we can actually let loose and do anything under the roof. So that's how it started. And then Ant came up because I was thinking, it was one of these crazy discussions with another friend of mine in walking on the streets of Barcelona. So we were just debating about, what technology can do. I mean, I was doing this research on robotic fabrication and all of that. So we were just chatting, and then I said, okay, hey, what if we imagine a future and wherein we take all the learnings and the science and knowledge that actually we have gathered, but not typically get constrained by the current way of building. Let's forget everything and just imagine that only the science exists and the technology exists, and now you have to build. So what's the way forward? Then this entire thing came about. The whole ideation went on this thing that, okay, what if robots start building by themselves, sculpting landscapes, and in the whole thing, so you don't need you can create some beautiful. Do we still continue working the same linear way of making buildings, or will we come up with something as beautiful as this probably like cave architecture ones, in the back, but way more sophisticated with the machines and all that, just like probably as sophisticated as ants in environment, the way ants go about and build in like the ant hills. So I started to think, that's where the idea came from. What if, the Ant Studio, thinking that what if we replicate the process in which ants make their ant hill, and then the whole idea, the thought continued, and thinking about, especially because if you observe the ants, it's not just about the ant hills, because there's a lot to learn, the teamwork and
Brilliant
collective
quality.
intelligence.
Yes.
Collective intelligence and the discipline and all of it. So there's a lot beyond that. So yeah, I think that's how the Ant came. I think it was just one of those crazy conversations that you keep having with your friends, and thinking about just probably wondering what future should be and all that. Yeah,
it's a brilliant coincidence, art, nature, and technology, and here the concept that the community of ants so inspire us with their brilliant architectural skills and teamwork, of course. Yeah. So yes, all right, and moving on, I'd also like to know the coolant that you have created. So that also has the the ANT in it. That's brilliant. So I would like to know, we would like to know that how did you come up with that kind of a design, and all about terracotta and its properties that are there, effective properties that make it all the more efficient.
So it was actually back in 2015 that I was actually recommended to this factory project as an art installation for this. I also do this kinetic art and all of that. So it happened that one of my very good friends who's living for abroad and for he's migrating, he's also an architect. And it's just, I think it's a serendipity kind of a moment wherein he's leaving and he said, okay, can you take up this project I'm working on and talk to the client? And also there is this factory in which you have to design an art installation in front of a DG set, and you have to do something like that. And it was, that's all I think. Then I went to the this factory on like you can say it's in May or something, peak summers. And trust me, it was unbearable to stand in front of those machines. Literally that time, back in 2015, I mean, at least now the electricity, I mean, these the power cuts are much lesser. Now, back in the day, there used to be this regular power cut for 2 to 3 hours in a day. And that's out of 8 hours of a working day in the morning. You have like 3 hours of power cut in the factories. And then they use this DG set to run. Now, when I went there, I was literally, there are two factory buildings next to each other. And this DG set is in the middle. People would run from one to another. And for 10 meters at least in front of it, you cannot stand. There's a constant gush of hot air coming from the machine. It was like really, really torturous. So I think it was, I think the credit should be given to the client in the first place, because he really wanted to do something about it, even though we came up with a solution. But it's his initiative that led us to come up with something. And he said that, okay, I really want to do something about it and make sure that the workers are not suffering. Then we said, okay, I mean, but the brief is very interesting, because he said, we have tried quite a few things, and with hay and this evaporative cooling pads in the front, they don't last for long, and we need something really robust. And he told me that you cannot make anything like solid wall in front of it. If you put a solid wall, the air will bounce back to the machine, and like it will kill the efficiency of the machine itself. So while thinking, then I think that led us to thinking about, what's the best way to go about it. And then Terracotta came up quite intuitively. Actually, it's not like even it was an intuitive process, because first of all, it's robust, and Terracotta is used for cooling water in this earthen pots for ages. We still use it in many of the places. So we thought, okay, what if we use Terracotta? Because first, it can withstand that kind of heat that is coming in. And also it's quite robust as a material. It's compared to hay and evaporative cooling pads, it's much more stronger. And it can, it can withstand even hundreds of degrees of temperature. Nothing will happen to it. So then we said, okay, we'll work with Terracotta. And then we made a prototype using brick jali, like a brick lattice and all of that. It worked. And there is a substantial drop in the temperature. Then so that was my first, so we conducted an experiment to see if this hypothesis can work. And client was pretty happy. Then we said, okay, now we will even make it more efficient. Instead of a brick lattice like this, we made a huge lattice, like almost. Then I said, okay, this has to be even more scientific. We cannot build it on assumptions. So what we did is that's where technology came into play. With another help of a friend, we did CFD analysis, and we thought, okay, if we have to make them like a beehive cones. So we took the help of technology to see what is the diameter that is perfect, and also what is the length of the pot. What is the perfect size? Because you cannot make something really shallow and think it will work. It won't work. You need a proper, for evaporative cooling, probably you need, the right surface area, and the volume is to surface area ratios and all that. So we wanted to, I think that's how it started. I mean, the whole thing with the factory. And so later, after this analysis, then we developed this beehive, so that we're able to predict the performance and all. So interestingly, what happened is, it was just after finishing it, the next day I had to fly for the postgraduate diploma. So I really haven't seen it working for 2 years, almost like 15 months or something. I did not see it working. So I did it. I only heard from the client that, oh yeah, it's working, it's fine. So yeah, so I went to Spain, and then when I got back to India, even then also I did not go right after that. I went after, I think, 3-4 months or something, thinking, okay, fine, let me see it, says it working. So when I went there, I was like super happy to see it, that the whole thing. And yeah, I think after that, we started even developing further. Then we wrote to some publication houses to say, okay, can we do this? Okay, can we put it up and all? So finally, somebody responded, and yeah, that's how the whole journey started off with it.
Lovely, lovely. Were there any challenges, Monish, that you encountered? And we would like to know how you overcame those.
Honestly, there were a lot of challenges. Actually, the challenges with the first installation, I think you can say there is something like a beginner's luck. So the first installation went really smooth, and I think we had to only change the pots 3 to 4 years later, like, that too, we just wanted to change it. Even the client, it was not a big need from the client. We said, okay, there's a slight chip off, and it's been documented in many places, like, really a lot of people coming. There was one journalist who came all the way from Amsterdam to document it, and there's a photo shoot, and like there's a lot of media coverage around that. So we got really lucky with that. And what happened, the tricky was, so like I said, so when we were replacing the pots, the second time when we did it, it failed. Structurally it collapsed. So the reason was that it was around monsoons. We pushed the potters to give them jaldi do, like give it really quick. So I think it was without proper drying and all of it, whatever, the firing was not done properly. So we put it, and in 3 months' time, the structural integrity of the pots gave up, and some of the pots in the bottom collapsed, and because of that, the entire thing collapsed. So that was a wake-up call for us. We're like, okay, now this is where we have to be, because we have to be like now on. We have to be careful about not just the material, because it's not a one-time installation anymore. We have to, like, we are looking at it as a solution, and for different places. So then actually the whole research started around the material density, what is the right proportions, how do you get the consistency, how do you actually go ahead and then talk to the potters, tell them about what are the right proportions. I mean, so the first one was, like I said, was more of an art installation that cools. And later we actually wanted it to be like, we were starting to look at the performance of it, and many things. I mean, many things like became the governing factors about how often do you have to change the pots, and people started asking us a lot of questions of that, like in terms of that. So we went ahead and then done a lot of design development in the process, tried out different configurations, and so yeah, I think later it has evolved into as a design and also as a product, I think many stages. So we were also tried, we also set it up in one of the in a small office space in Mumbai, and that there we found this challenge of this water trickling down, the splash from the whole thing. So we got input from little things like that. They said that, okay, the splash is not good, so that makes it not useful in interior spaces. So what do we do for interiors? And because that's the first project that we did in interiors, and we're happy that they let us do it, and they were the first ones actually to say, okay, we are willing to try. I think it is Conscious Foods that actually wanted to try this. So then we said, okay, now the whole design process of how do you take this idea into various spaces, and yeah, I think that led to a lot of changes post that.
Good things do take time, yeah. So yes, a lot of
I mean, I think what we really enjoyed is that in the whole process there is a solution here, and which was kind of worked pretty well in a factory and in an outdoor space, and then the entire the research was around how do you make it adaptable onto buildings, not a factory anymore, not an outdoor installation, but how do you put it up on a building facades and envelopes, and how do you make this as a solution for you can say like I said, how do you adapt it into houses and architecture?
Right. All right. And I was going through your website and I saw a lot of breathtakingly beautiful installations that you've worked on, and buildings, of course. The entire thing was so beautiful that, I really wanted to ask you, this parametric designing is what is mostly seen in your work. So how is it? Like, is it just for aesthetics, or does it also add to the sustainability goal that you have out there?
Sustainability is, you can say, a very core component in our practice now. While I must be honest that when we started off, we are more of a very young practice. I mean, I got my first project when I was 24, 25. And so the thought and the level of thinking was definitely not so much back then. It was more about just the whole idea, when I get out of college, every kid has this aspiration of, chalo duniya badal dete, let's do something crazy and all of it. And there was not much about, honestly, I think I come from the same kind of mindset ki kuch alag karte and all that. It was not so much about sustainability back then. But I think it was what really happened is this is something I was pointed out at, not something I have done it consciously or because somebody asked me to do, because while we're using technology, we always have been very conscious about the material, what material we use. I think that is not something that I have done it out of choice or something. I mean, it was just, I think, quite intuitive that probably we always wanted to work with local materials. And another thing is also that, if you look at Indian way of working, we are all like very frugal in our approach when we are doing stuff, right? I mean, we are not like, we don't have, unfortunately or fortunately, we are, our technology when it comes to machining and parametrics, at least when I started off, was very, I know very few people who were doing it back then. And I can count on fingers probably in the initial days. So we always wanted, if you want to make something possible, and you always had to, even though I had learned actually robotics, I was working with robots, making stuff with the robots. But when I come back to India, I have to work with a welder. I have to work with a local fabricator here. I have to sit and do it with a potter, right? It's not like in India, I struggled quite a lot to find places to get these robots and convincing the clients, made business proposals and reports saying this is the future and all of it. And the thing is, while a lot of people are open to it, but they always say, so what is the ROI? What is the question comes down to that. And then in that case, you don't have a choice but to show them that these things are possible. Like what I'm talking about, forget the robot, but at least the designing and the technology, this is what you can achieve. So we were doing that. So when I came back to India, I actually started working on this parametric design tools, but then a very local way of like doing it hands-on with the local craftsmen and people. So yeah, and like I said, I mean, answering your question about sustainability, I think from after many years of learning or being still trying to understand sustainability is what all about and all of that. Materials, and I think the choice of materials that we make have tremendous impact on the environment. Purely materials. I mean, what really happens to the life cycle of a product or a house after the life cycle, and what is the carbon footprint, what are the emissions, and what is the embodied energy of materials? Because I'm not saying this is the only thing, but materials have tremendous impact on the environment. So then we were like, for me, technology is just a means, or the tool is just a means of doing it. Probably I'm good with this computational design tools and all of it. So I'll come up with probably a fancy form or something more sculptural or something more eye-catchy maybe. But at the end of the day, what really makes a difference is not the tool or this thing, but how we really build it. What are the materials that we're using, and what is the kind of I can make the same thing in absolutely probably hazardous materials. The choice of materials can kill the whole thing, like the whole approach. So for me, what I realized is these tools are only one way, because we are all evolving, and now more and more people are using computational design tools. But unless we use this natural materials and stuff, we are not really going to contribute to sustainability, or in a way. So since then, what happened is that after that, you can say this thing, observation, we started making a conscious effort in our works to make sure that no matter what we design, how do we choose our materials, what kind of materials then we are talking about, what do we get. So even that's why I think most of our works, even though they're very probably powerful when it comes to the technology side of it, they're very rustic and raw in their outlook. So we are not really, that's actually a conscious call also, right? While we are also like trying to, because there are all kinds of clients, we are trying to show that this, even the raw materials like this can be really aspirational. Because ultimately, in my opinion, this only makes a difference, not if 1 or 2 people are using it, or 10 people, only a handful of people. You can only think about a sustainable change when a larger segment of people shift towards this mindset, right? Like let's say only 10 people or 15 people, you see beautiful projects all spread across, but they're very niche and all. That's not going to create an impact. They probably will create a noise, but that's not good for impact. So to impact, what really means is that more and more people should do it. So now the thought process is, okay, let's do sustainable, but then let's make it so good that in the sense, even when it comes to the outlook, let's try and break from this rawness that comes with the sustainable materials. Can we make it a little bit more polished, but with natural materials, so that more people want to do it in their houses?
Yeah.
More and more people adapt to it, and so on. I think that's, so there are a lot of thought and research around this. How do you break that mold of that?
It's a moral responsibility of architects now. They should be incorporating it in their practice.
Yes, absolutely. Because I mean, yesterday I was actually I was in a jury with some students from NASA student body organized this competition for Griha, and hosted by I think Griha and Terry. It was a fantastic initiative, because right at the level of the university and college, they're talking about sustainable methods, and now I think we're in a time where it's actually very encouraging to see that these conversations are no more restricted to practices that are only doing it. I think this awareness is starting to build from the grassroots at the college, at the education level itself, that they know more about building performance, and we are talking about the life cycle analysis and the life cycle cost of materials and products and what's the impact on all of that. That's a really good shift. And yeah, I think only then I think we will probably see a massive shift towards sustainability in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So earlier we used to have housing complexes with a nice courtyard in the premises, and that's how I think our elderlies used to enjoy it all, and were all hale and hearty. But now we are like living in skyscrapers, and you see cluster housing, in practice all over. What are your thoughts on that?
I think a courtyard is a feature that we recommend every project, not just housing or anything. We have done housing projects, and we are doing residences. We love courtyards, and that really helps in many ways. I mean, for air circulation, bringing the people together. It actually acts like that one entity where the whole family can come and sit, and all of it. That's an element that we in any residence. I think we have recommended one. We've done one in Gurgaon, and even though there's some design changes that the client did during the course of construction, now we are doing one in Raipur with a courtyard. So we love courtyards. I think there is no debate or question about it. So,
any advice or anything that you would suggest for those people like myself? We stay in high-rise apartments, and we have got glass facades over there, so it's like a heat box it has become, and it is not healthy at all, right? So are there any optimizations or anything that we can do to really feel better? Or yeah,
I think that if you look at traditional way of building, and obviously if you look at passive systems and techniques and all, we cannot compare that performance of that with air conditioners. Air conditioners are, while they are absolutely hazardous and everything, but they work in a certain manner. Okay. So what we are trying to recommend to people is that, in any spaces like this, because at least in the houses on all of these glass boxes, try to convert 60% of the spaces for natural ventilation. 60%. I'm not saying 100%. Okay, 100% is an ideal thing, which is very difficult to achieve. Like I don't think we are there yet, at least in the evolution. Okay, but what if all the common spaces, the cross ventilation is a very powerful thing. So if you leave your windows open and leave this entire flow of energies through the space, they're not just like for thermal comfort. It also creates a very positive vibe, and they're very healthy spaces. You get the natural ventilation. It takes the energy from one end to the other. There's a flow. Like even if you talk about Vastu, these courtyards and all of it, it's all about flow of energies.
right.
And we as Indians, we really believe in that, flow of energies and all of it. So I think what is really important in whether it is high rise or low rise, whatever, is that consciously, if you say, okay, fine, even if I have 1 or 2 air conditioners in my house, it's okay. But the rest of it, 60%, and this particular thing, I want to keep it air ventilated, the whole thing. Okay, it's fine. That itself, even if you're able to reduce this energy consumption in the houses by 30 to this percentage, will create a massive impact on the environment. And if everybody starts doing it collectively, that itself is going to be a substantial change in the whole thing, this thing. Because ideal is something that might not suit everybody. Some people maybe in their houses they know cross ventilation, and you need, or you're used to the kind of lifestyle. Probably you're spending the whole day in office which is air conditioned, and you want to come back home, and you cannot live with it because your body is already tailored to it, right?
Exactly.
So on and so forth. So, but I believe that these little changes have tremendous potential to for that impact. So I think we should not underestimate this. Even while not being absolutely ideal, also we can contribute towards a change.
Right. Yes. Thank you so much. Yes, we are going to definitely incorporate those pieces of advice, brilliant ones, and see how it actually impacts us. Yes, talking about impact design, how far have we come as a nation? I'd like to ask you.
How far we have come?
As a nation, as a country, how much have we progressed when you talk about impact designing in architecture?
It's very difficult to say, because my I told you before also, it doesn't really make sense only if a handful of people are doing it. And only we have this case studies of 10 brilliant houses and 100 best houses in a population of 130 billion people living here. Like this handful examples is not going to help. I really believe while there is definitely a massive shift and awareness about this, I think we are slightly unfortunately far from the ideal scenario, because like I said, our population is really crazy, and our cities, they consume tremendous amount of resources and energy, right? So to make it happen, I think we need not hundreds. I think we need thousands and thousands of examples and shift, like case studies like this for a good change. So we are not there. Definitely, yeah.
All right. Who are your role models, Monish? You'd like to know in the world of architecture?
Role models. I mean, I not a single individual, because I really look up to people who have brought about a change in this thing. The kind of way that we live. For example, I really love the works of Jeffrey Baba, and the reason being the way he brings landscape into the buildings is beautiful, and I really find it very serene. When I after graduating, in fact, the thought process also changed when I visited his buildings in Sri Lanka. Went around and saw that, okay, how that nature got in. And probably I can say that my work, even though is very experimental and computational design and all, I imagined always that, what if that's the kind of space that you're living in, but with beautiful experimentation happening all around. So that phase, but when it comes to architectural experimentation, I love the works of Collector. And now I think there are lots of other young architects doing some crazy work all over the world internationally. But yeah, so these are the architects that I always looked up to. Jeffrey Baba, I can definitely say that has a great influence on my work, in especially always aspiring to bring nature into the buildings and all that. Yeah, I think he would definitely stand out among us.
Amazing example. And you are a role model for a lot of aspirants out there. Any piece of advice for them so
I
that they can
honestly,
also follow your.
yet we are just tinkering our way out. But my advice is that to youngsters is, um, we all like it's very important that we make informed decisions. Like the buildings are no more about solving uh, a particular functional need for a client. We have crossed that long back. I think we are in a position where right now we have tremendous power to make an impact, not just to the clients, but also to the environment. So informed decisions about every single choice that we make should not be because we saw it on Instagram and Pinterest and we want to recommend to the client. I think that mindset should change. We should be more conscious about what is it that, what really are we recommending to the clients from. We should start thinking from the material perspective and all of that. I think it's something that most of the people already know, but I would say that that's I think that's going to make a lot of change. Informed information, pass on information to the clients, is really, really important.
Perfect. Yes. And I mean, we would like to know more about your next big projects so that we can keep tuned to your websites, etc.
No,
Of
there
course,
is
we
a
know a lot about you in the papers, in the media, yeah. But yeah, I mean,
So I think there is one project that it's a government project. It is not yet published anywhere. Probably that's the biggest project that we are doing right now, and hopefully that could be our I think the whole studio is really looking forward to that. The reason being, it's going to be completely built by the community with natural materials and trying out everything sustainable when it comes to rammed earth, and you can say what do you say, I mean, we have the complete flexibility to try any kind of natural construction process in that, and it's a large project, and it will be out soon we'll publish it soon on this thing, so you'll get a glimpse of that. And apart from that, we have some very interesting projects that we are doing in Raipur, where we are experimenting with building skins, envelope cooling, and all that. So all the research that we have done under Beehive, we are culminating that into more, what do you say, standardized and customer solutions, so that more and more people can use it. I mean, while we have worked with this Beehive, like I told you, it is raw and rustic and everything, and it had its own challenges. But like I told you, my idea is that unless we standardize and take it to the people, it's not going to create an impact. So I think there's a lot of work done there, and envelope cooling is something that's happening. So we're also that's something. A project is getting built with that like a large facade. So we're all excited about it. So let's see. So we're waiting to see how it comes out and what it does.
Could you please elaborate a little more upon envelope cooling?
So building envelopes, and by building envelope I mean your facades and your roofs. They they absorb a lot of heat, and so what really happens is the heat gets, if you we spoke about cross ventilation in buildings. So cross ventilation really helps in drawing all the air and actually taking it out, right? It creates a comfortable environment inside. Now similarly, if you're building skins, especially when you have a facade, like I compare it with the fabric that we wear. In summers, we wear cotton, we want it to be very porous and airy, and in winters we want to be woolen, and we want to trap the hot air, and we do it. The skins have that power. Now similarly, building envelopes, what if the building facade is designed in a manner that it's also like airy when you need it, so that it's cutting off the heat that's entering inside, and also while air passes through this and comes inside, it's cooler, right? So that can actually create a massive impact on the airflow coming inside. And so we have done research about how you can maintain the visual angles and the views, but you can cut off the heat that is coming in. So we have so that those projects are under the they're in progress. I think probably when so there are a couple of projects that we are doing it to see how this entire thing, the performance and everything will come. Probably I think if the whole performance matches the simulations and all the analysis that we have done, the research, I think that's where I think we'll have a seriously good project to talk about that can actually be implemented by volumes of people all over this thing in many places. So yeah.
All right. And I also read that it's your dream to have robotics introduced in construction industry.
Yeah, I'm also into teaching. So I said that I'm actually, while I believe that technology and natural material are two eyes of this practice. So technology, robotics, and we're also doing some next semester at SPA. We'll be talking about Metaverse and what happens with the Metaverse, and how you can bring about a change. What happens visually? Like everything is virtual. Does it mean that you are actually creating experiences without building anything? Does it mean it's sustainable? It's a question mark. It's not so easy the answer, because even to exist in virtual world, you need a lot of energy. You'll be consuming, there'll be like lots and lots of data centers working out there to make it happen. So, but it is too early to comment on the sustainability aspect of it, but I think we are interested in looking at it from that lens as to, if we go virtual and we are not really physically making anything, but you're still getting that experience. So that's a subject that we are talking about next semester, and I'm also like trying to see if all this you can execute this complex geometries and basically the models and forms using robotic fabrication in projects. So that's another wing that's happening. It's a slow process, so we are pushing a lot of it as research and experimentation for the time being, but probably I think in India, once sooner or later technology will definitely catch up, and we're waiting for that.
Right. We wish you, achieve many more milestones in this. We wish you all the very best, and thank you so much. A little message for our viewers here. Stay tuned to From the Expert's Mouth for more such insightful conversations. And please subscribe to our channel and leave your comments. And Monish, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me here.